Welcome back, everybody, to the playoff edition of the 2-on-1 Fast Break podcast. I'm Sean Kennedy, joined as always by our NFL handicapper, Dan Erda. Dan, playoff fever is in the air. Do you have it?
I do. It's temperature shot up as soon as the regular season ended.
Yeah, so everybody loves regular season football, but I think it's safe to say that playoff action is a whole different animal, and people have been waiting for this for a few months now.
Yeah, and the one downside is I love having all the games on at 1 o'clock on Sunday and red zone and stuff like that. But now you have games where every single play means so much more that you actually want to focus in on what's actually going on in each play. So it's exciting. It's a total crapshoot. Teams that looked like they were left for dead a couple weeks ago could end up winning a couple games and see themselves on the brink of a Super Bowl. So very exciting time.
Yeah. The one other kind of different aspect with the playoffs being here is that I know some people play fantasy playoff leagues, but the general public pretty much has done fantasy at this point. And now they're kind of getting back to watching football for the sake of football rather than worrying about if their guy's the guy catching the ball each play.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit refreshing.
No, it is, because you have a team, you're either rooting for a team or you're rooting for a good game. You just don't care about whether some running back gets a meaningless touchdown.
Right. Well, we'll quickly go over what happened in Week 17 for you, just to kind of close out the year. We're not going to go in depth in each game like we usually do because nobody cares what happened in Week 17 anymore. Playoffs are here; that's what people want to hear about. But just real quick, you went 3-4 in Week 17. You won your Houston pick'em. Houston won 23-17 over Jacksonville. That was closing out a 3-team teaser for you, so you had them in a pick'em. You won with KC -2.5. KC won that game 19-7 over San Diego. Unfortunately, not enough for them to get into the playoffs, as Baltimore also won their game. You won New York Jets +6. Jets won that outright in Rex Ryan's swan song, 37-24 over Miami. Unfortunately, you lost with the other New York team. They were -3, and they lost outright to the Eagles, 34-26. Lost both Cleveland and Washington, getting points. Cleveland was +9. They, unfortunately for you, lost by 10.
And you know what? If anybody read my column, by the time the column was posted, the line was up to 12 or 13.
Right.
So if you read the column and I took the play based on me, you won. But because in the article I wrote, I was only getting 9 points. It really sucks for me.
Being on top of line movements is very important, and not saying you weren't, because obviously stuff happened after you posted that caused that line to move as it did, but just getting good lines in general. Good lesson as always. Washington +6 was a loser as they were smoked by Dallas 44-17. And finally, Carolina-Atlanta did not go over 47.5 as you predicted, as Carolina won 34-3, so going under that total. Dan,
Atlanta scores 3 points at home in a must-win game. Unbelievable.
Yeah, just really laid an egg there with Matt Ryan and company. The Carolina defense has looked much improved, and that's what pretty much propelled them to an unlikely playoff berth here, as they went from being 3-8-1 to actually being favored in round 1 of the playoffs.
By a full touchdown!
Almost a full touchdown.
It's a full touchdown.
It is up to 7 now, and a 7-8-1 team is favored in the first round of the playoffs. Strange times we live in.
I mean, what do you expect when Ryan Lindley is quarterbacking?
I don't expect a lot of points for Arizona.
I called this weeks ago. Tell me that team would not be better off with Tim Tebow starting.
They'd be better off with nearly anybody starting.
I was really pushing for Kurt Warner. I thought that would have been the coolest sports story in probably the last decade or so if he came out of retirement and put them on a run, but that's clearly not happening.
Yeah, but he's like 42 now or something.
Yeah, you can be a 42-year-old dude who just stands there and slings the ball around.
Yeah,
Favre did it for a couple of years.
What does he have to gain by doing that?
Cementing himself as one of the greatest comeback performances in the history of sports.
But what if he gets hit? I don't think after being out of football for 3-4 years or whatever it's been, I don't think his body could take the hits that would come from an NFL defense bearing down on you.
All I know is Arizona should have done something other than be okay with Ryan Lindley.
They can't. Just saying, oh, we can roll the dice with Ryan Lindley and pray that Drew Stanton comes back is I don't think that was the optimal strategy for them to employ.
Yeah, I think they were counting on Stanton being back for the playoffs, and then had that infection in his surgery or whatever,
Yeah.
and now he's out. So, but needless to say, that will not be a game we talk about today because I'm not willing to flip a coin on which team does. A team's not going to win that game. There's just going to be one team that doesn't lose.
Okay. So the anti foreshadowing.
Yes.
We'll not be talking about Carolina. So 3 and 4 week 17 brought you to a final conclusion of 27, 35, and 2.
Yeah, it sucks.
That's not I wasn't a math major, but I don't believe that's the 58, 60% you're shooting for.
It most certainly was not.
So 43.5% on the year. You did do pretty well on your futures bets that you had posted, and you had 3 posted at the beginning of the year. You won 2 of those. The one was just a real long shot bet that didn't pay off for you, and that was the Rams plus 3,500. We saw Sam Bradford, went out of the lineup really early in the season, and other than that, the Rams pretty much played the expectations. The defense looked really good, especially the second half of the year. They pulled off some upsets, and if they had some competent quarterback play in there, it really could have been a different story for them.
Yeah, when I made the bet, Bradford was healthy, and I think if he stayed healthy the whole season, it actually could have been a really, really tricky bet. Either way, though, it was a long shot. You don't expect to win those. It's kind of just like
Right.
throwing darts. But the other 2 I liked a lot, and the other 2 were full unit plays, and I liked how they ended up.
Yep. So you won both your full unit plays, and those were Pittsburgh to make the playoffs at plus 180 and Carolina Panthers under 8.5. So we said we weren't going to talk about Carolina anymore, but here we are talking about.
Yeah,
They didn't get 8.5. They didn't get over 8.5 wins, but they did make the playoffs
as a 7-point favorite.
As a 7-point favorite. So I think the Panthers fans will take it either way. But yeah, pretty much. A lot of people predicted the Panthers to kind of regress this season. They didn't have the deep roster they had last year due to salary cap implications, and they got squeezed out a little bit in that area. So it kind of played out how it did, and props to them for having a really good last month and a half there and making that playoff push.
Props to them for beating the crap teams that were on their schedule.
You can only play who's in front of you.
Yeah, that's true.
So the Buccaneers and the Redskins of the the Buccaneers and the Saints of the world.
Yeah.
If they're the guys lining up on the other side of you, that's the guys you have to beat, and they did that. So good job by them. And of course the Steelers, they are hosting a playoff game, so that plus 180 paid off for you. Unfortunately for the Steelers and their fans, they're going to be without arguably their most dynamic player, Le'Veon Bell, who has been officially ruled out for this wild card round game.
And not only are they going to be without Le'Veon Bell, but they're calling for a monsoon tomorrow night in a game that was really going it would have been a running fest if he were in the lineup. It's going to be very hard to pass vertically when the rain's coming down as hard as they're calling for it. So I think Pittsburgh's best hope is to hope that the AccuWeather reports are incorrect.
Well, they can be, so we'll have to see about that. But that's a good segue into your wild card round plays. And one of them, you're going to start a 3-team teaser, one of your highly regarded open 3-team teaser plays that treated you well throughout the season.
Yeah, really should have just done them. Next year, I might just do the 3-team teasers.
All right, so
no, that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen, folks. So be sure to tune in for other types of plays also next season. But in regard to this one, you are starting a 3-team teaser with Baltimore plus 13. I think you started your argument here, but why don't you keep going with why you like Baltimore getting that many points, or just in general?
I mean, first off, just have the fact that Baltimore-Pittsburgh is a great rivalry, and the games they play generally are won in the trenches. They're hard-fought, a lot of running, not a lot of... You rarely see one of those teams blow out the other one. And then when you factor in the fact that the favorite is now without their star running back and this monsoon weather... Even I think I could see Big Ben stepping up and having a great game and Antonio Brown making a couple plays. But now I'm getting 13 points to start this teaser, and I love that.
Yeah, every time you do one of these, we talk about the fact that getting an extra 10 points is huge. Obviously, it's why people look at a card and say, oh, if I tease 3 of these teams down 10 points each, how can I lose? But I agree. I like I like Baltimore getting that many points, not only because the points you mentioned, but just because I kind of like the under in this game as well.
Yeah.
I think the Ravens are without both of their starting tackles. I think that's going to really slow down their offensive attack. It's going to allow the Pittsburgh pass rush, which isn't great normally, but if they're going against a couple backups, they moved their star guard Yanda, who's their right guard. They moved him out to tackle, so now they got a backup guy in at guard there, and then they got a rookie over at left tackle. So I think they're going to really struggle to both run the ball and give Joe Flacco time to get downfield. And then on the other side of the ball, with Bell out, he was the guy for them. It wasn't like 90% of the teams nowadays that they give 60-70% of the carries to their starter, but there's another guy that he's still getting 10 to 12 carries a game.
Yes, that was their guy.
Not the case in Pittsburgh.
Not only is he their guy who gets 90% of the carries, but he's also great at the screens and he's great at the checkdowns. He was just such a valuable player. And now Pittsburgh's running back is Josh Harris.
Josh Harris, Ben Tate, who they signed off of the streets basically after he was released, and a little bit of Dre Archer, who's more of just like a scat back kind of, not a real in between the tackles guy.
Now, they could get creative and use Dre Archer in some plays tomorrow. That would be a fun guy to look out for. Run a couple of reverses with him. That dude's got fast. That dude's got unreal speed.
Yeah, he's certainly going to be involved. They're going to have a couple packages for him.
He
but
can't be in the
just
backfield.
As far as
did you see him try to make a block last week? It's one of the funniest things I've seen all year.
Well, he's what, like 5'6", 160 pounds? Like, how is he going to stop a guy 280 coming bearing down on Ben Roethlisberger? It's not going to happen. So I just think with so much, like you said, 90% of this carries, it was even more than that. There was like a 6-week period where everyone not Le'Veon Bell had a total of 5 carries over the course of like 5 or 6 games. And he just was in every play because he's a great blocker. He's great at catching passes, as you mentioned, and he's a great runner. So I just think that's just such a huge part of what they want to do offensively. I think they're going to struggle to score. I think the Ravens are going to struggle to score for the because of their injury concerns on that line. So
13 points is good.
13 points. I don't think either team is going to win by that margin, so I would like either side getting that. All right, so that's one of your plays for the wild card round. You do have one full play, which is Indianapolis -3.5 at home against the Bengals. Dan, A.J. Green doubtful for the Bengals, and the Colts absolutely put a shellacking on them earlier this season, 27-0. Probably the Colts' best performance of the year. Talk to us about this game and why you like the Colts here.
I mean, I love this play. First off, you can laugh and say you're betting against Andy Dalton on the road in a playoff game, and it's fun to make fun of Andy Dalton because he has red hair, and that makes it even funnier.
He does? Oh, I didn't know that.
But the truth is, he's kind of in a really crappy situation right here because A.J. Green was just downgraded to doubtful today, and that means that Mohamed Sanu, who did a pretty good job filling in for A.J. Green when he got hurt earlier in the year, but then they're just going to lock him down with Vontae Davis. So then he's going to have nobody to throw to. Sure, Jeremy Hill's looked really good, and Giovanni Bernard can do things, but I don't see how this is going to be any different from the last time that these two teams played. Andy Dalton can't, and I don't think it's fair to criticize him because who could put a team on their back with these weapons right now? A.J. Green's out. Sanu against one of the best corners in the NFL. I mean, unless Greg Little catches 150 yards, which I don't see happening.
Is that the line? I'll take the under.
I'll take the
Greg Little 150.
But who are their fifth string receiver Sanzenbacher got hurt too. I think he's on the Bengals, right?
Yeah, he had an interception.
He had the interception. Yeah,
an interception on the special team, the fake punt.
You have an incumbent quarterback on the road, and now he doesn't have any weapons or anywhere he's going to be able to throw the ball. Give me Andrew Luck because let me tell you something. Everyone's been hyping Andrew Luck for quite some time now. I think it's about time he makes a little bit of a deep playoff run.
He did have a pretty good game against the Chiefs last year in the playoffs.
First off, Andy Reid gave that game away by being Andy Reid.
Well, he will do that.
Second off, the second they played an elite team, they got shellacked, which I expect them to do again this year, and I can't wait to bet against them in week 2. But for week 1, first things first, I think they get it done. Their running game they pretty much don't have one. It's pretty much non-existent. But I think they can mask that deficiency for one game against the Bengals at home, and then it's time to fade them.
Uh, I'm not fully on board. If it was three, I might be more inclined. The hook there does me in. Um, as you mentioned, they don't have a running game, and it's really been hurting them ever since Ahmad Bradshaw went down early in the season. And that's how you beat the Bengals is you run the ball on them. They have a pretty good secondary, but they're one of the worst teams in the league defending the run. And defensively, yeah, I agree. The Cincinnati's not going to be able to really pass too well with Davis matched up against Sanu, and the domino effect that AJ Green being out has on the entire lineup. But they are going to be able to run the ball. The Colts aren't a great defensive team in general, and they're not good against the rush either. So I think that 1-2 combo of Hill and Bernard, I think they're going to, especially if Green is
But when you have
out,
no,
they're going to pound that.
but when you have no threat to worry about
You
from
can
the
stack the
receiver,
box.
you can focus on the run.
And
Be
I
like,
get
listen,
that.
we're gonna put Davis on Sanu, stack the boxes against the run. What is it gonna do? Throw to the fourth, fifth receivers?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be a lot of checkdowns to Jermaine Gresham and plays of that sort. I'm just saying, I think the Bengals are going to be in a game management mindset just because of Green's injury and their wish to run the ball and keep Luck off the field. And I think they'll be fairly successful in being able to do that. And I just think it's not going to be a high scoring game. And for that reason, I would tend towards.
You don't like that half point.
I don't like the half.
You don't
point.
like that half point at all.
Yeah. I agree that the Colts should be able to pass the ball. The Bengals only have 20 sacks total as a team this season. That's less than either J.J. Watt or Justin Houston had individually.
Yeah.
So they don't have a good pass rush. So Andrew Luck should be able to stand back there and make some throws. I don't know. I just think I don't think the Colts are a complete enough team to be giving 3.5 to anyone.
You know what? Like I said, I agree. Like your problems with the Colts, I think, are very accurate, and I don't like the team either. But I think this is the week where they win. Maybe get some people going, "Oh, Andrew Luck's going to lead them this year." And then you take whoever they play next round minus 7 points, and they win by 20.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly a possibility. So that is your one full play for the wild card round. You like the Colts?
We should make some sort of friendly bet on this thing.
A friendly bet?
Yeah, like something fun.
All right, what do you have in mind?
Loser. We can talk about this off air and come up with something.
No, we should. People should know.
People should know what it is.
They should know what's at stake, so that when they're watching the game,
they know what's going to happen.
They know what's at stake here.
All right. Next podcast we tape, the loser of this bet's got to bring over some dinner.
All right, I like it.
Done.
So dinner is on the loser. I got the Bengals plus 3.5. You got the Colts minus 3.5. That is your one full play for the wild card round, and you're also starting your 3-team teaser with Baltimore plus 13. So we did get one question this week. It's not an NFL play, but as many of you know listening, I'm very big on the NBA as well. In fact, most of the site is
dedicated to basketball. Football is the side project.
Yeah, but the NFL is the 100-pound gorilla in the sports scene here in America. So
yes,
it pays to talk about that as well. But we had a question from eMoney Baby Eric Rooney on Twitter. He wanted to know in regard to the past NBA draft, given how Wiggins has kind of come on lately, would you still, from the Sixers' perspective, would you rather, hypothetically, have gotten the first pick and taken Wiggins, or still go the route with Embiid and having the additional all-in with the tanking? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm gonna give you my thoughts as someone who's not as into basketball as you. I do follow it, but this is your area. I'm happy with what they did. I think Embiid really can be something super special, and I also think that they would have had to give up a ton to get Wiggins to get to that one spot. And I don't think
I think his question was, hypothetically, would you rather the Sixers have still gotten the one pick and ended up with Wiggins as he is now, or are you happy that
Oh,
They
see, I
got
thought
they got
I thought the
Embiid.
question was,
Oh,
knowing Wiggins is going to play like this, would you have traded up for that pick?
right. No, I don't think he never mentioned trading up.
Okay.
Well, I mean, does that change your reasoning?
Uh, yeah, it does. Because that's kind of that how I felt on draft night was I want Wiggins if he's there at 3, but if he's not, I don't want to trade any of the other assets to trade up in the draft. And I
So
kind of feel the same way. At 3,
yeah, I think on draft night there's the rumor was the third pick and Thad Young and maybe like a second rounder or
well, I thought they
something
had to give.
two off the
I thought it was
one.
going to include their second first rounder also.
Oh yeah, it did. Okay, so you're saying you'd rather have Embiid and Sarge
Yes.
than Wiggins? Okay.
If you're saying right now, given what Andrew Wiggins has shown, if he was available at 3, would you take him? Absolutely. Absolutely. At worst, he's an elite defender who can contribute a little bit on offense. At the absolute worst, I think the way he's been playing is very impressive, and I would love to be building around him. However, I'm not mad about it. I'm very excited to get him beat on the floor and see how he does.
Well, okay. I agree that when it comes to Wiggins, he has a very high floor, and he's shown that. Um, but how the drafts played out, I can't argue with the route they went in terms of this past draft. Embiid is the one guy, even above Wiggins, who has that star potential, and that's still what they need. They've been collecting a bunch of guys that maybe they'll be starters down the road for an actual good team. I mean, I know they start now for the Sixers, but a lot of guys start now for the Sixers that shouldn't be, so it's not really an argument to be made.
They found Robert Covington, who's the new best player in the NBA.
Yeah, Big Shot Bob has had his moments, and KJ McDaniels they got in the second round. He's been a huge discovery for them. And in terms of his defensive impact, somebody just posted an article about how he's measured out as a better defender in nearly every area than Andrew Wiggins has so far.
He also has the greatest mom in the NBA.
Yeah, how about that game when she was in the stands down in that was against the Hawks, right? Yeah, I think
It was a Hawks. Yeah, I think it was in
it
Atlanta.
was in Atlanta.
And apparently, she did this in Clemson too. That anytime someone other than her son takes
Yeah.
a shot, she just boos. She doesn't care if it goes in. She doesn't
No,
care if the team's
she
winning.
hates anybody but her son having the ball. She was yelling, "Pass the ball to him." When he had the ball, she was yelling, "Don't pass the ball." Really hysterical stuff. By the end of that night,
Her Twitter is
everybody was
amazing,
taking
too.
selfies with her in the crowd. Security tried to get her to move until a Sixers rep came over and said, "Oh no, she's a mom. Like, it's okay. Please don't escort her out of here." Um, but anyway, back to the Embiid Wiggins thing. I think Embiid still has the much higher ceiling, which is really what the Sixers need. They need that transcendent player who can be a top 10 in the league kind of guy. It's I mean, Wiggins has played well, but he's just kind of reinforced that he's probably not going to be that kind of player. He's going to be like a second or third best player on a team on a contender.
I don't know if you can set his limitations like
No,
that at this point.
like obviously you never know. It's still half a season in, so it's really dumb to make any sweeping judgments yet. But just in terms of what we've seen so far, he's kind of lived up to. He's played to what people thought about him coming into the season, and which is good. He still obviously looks like a really good player, and it's not to take anything away from him, but he just doesn't look like that superstar that any team that's trying to rebuild needs.
And you got to remember the one other factor is that part of the drafting Embiid and Saric knowing that neither of them were going to play this year was that the team was going to be so bad that they're probably going to get the 1 or 2 pick again next year.
Exactly.
Whereas if
So
Wiggins was in the lineup and got them a couple more victories or a couple more, a couple lower draft spots, I mean, that's part of the whole rebuilding process is that they're going to have their choice this year.
right. So if they end up with Okafor this summer, then that's a much better scenario having Embiid and him rather than having Wiggins have played all year. Maybe they
Maybe
win
like the
five.
fifth or sixth.
Maybe they win 5 more games and it drops them down 2 or 3 spots in the draft. You just it's hard to say. Like I mentioned, it's dumb to make premature judgments on something that's not really gonna be played out for another 10 to 12 years with how these careers go. But right now, I think in terms of the past draft, I'm pretty happy with how it played out. They got McDaniels in the second round. They Embiid still projects as the highest ceiling guy. I mean, we've obviously yet to see him on the court, but that's what they're going for. They weren't going for being a 20-win team this season. They're going hopefully 5 years down the road being a 60-win team.
And let me tell you something. As for all the bad press they're getting, how Deadspin rips them nonstop, and people say it's a disgrace, Philadelphia doesn't care. We love it. We love watching these guys, and we love like picking our favorite obscure Sixer. Like there was a Philly blogger who for the longest time loved Brandon Davies and was absolutely heartbroken when Brandon Davies was traded.
Yeah,
and it's great. This is so much more fun than getting the 8 seed and first round elimination every year, which we went through for so long.
Yeah, I was covering the Temple Kansas game a couple weeks ago.
Did a very good job on that game too. I read that article. Temple upset Kansas at home.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a really exciting game in terms of the crowd being obviously mostly pro Temple and just a really good win for them. But Sam Hinkie was there in the scouting. I was seated 2 rows behind him.
That's awesome.
And so right before with 3 or 4 minutes left, he had to get out of there because it was pretty obvious everyone was going to rush the court, and it was dangerous to be in that area at that point. So he started heading back to the concourse area. So he's walking back, and then you see all the student section. They see it's Hinkie, and he's commenting, it's like, Hinkie, we love you. Like, imagine even 5 years ago, but 10 years ago, like your GM.
It's Stefanski, we love you.
Yeah, being the face of the franchise. It's such a different world we live in now.
Philadelphia now has 2 teams where the GM is the face of the franchise, or I guess Chip Kelly's kind of the GM now.
Yeah,
he's in charge of everything.
GM. But yeah, it's just really interesting how the management of the team and the organizational moves, they get almost as much, if not as much, coverage and attention as the actual on-court play. And as an extension of that, these GMs and everybody else in the front office, they're almost as recognizable of faces as the stars on the court. And in the Sixers case, he is kind of the face of the franchise right now.
Absolutely.
And it's really interesting, and it's kind of fun. So we're not going to see for 3 or 4 years, but just try to enjoy the ride. Life's too short. Just have fun with it at least.
Pick your favorite young Sixer and hope that he's with the team in 4 years when they're actual competitors.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for the question. Hope you NFL fans out there didn't totally tune out. But we'll be back next week with the divisional round plays, and hopefully I will have a free dinner.
Good luck, guys.